Thank you, everyone. What I'm going to talk today is the future of grid battery storage. So next slide.
Devastating fires and explosions. They operate best in a fairly narrow temperature range between 15.
So as you know, one of the challenges of lithium-ion batteries is fire and explosions. The other main issue is the lithium battery only operates in a very limited temperature range, so between 15 degrees and 35 degrees. So when you get down to 0 degrees, the lithium battery capacity drops to about 70%. So it slows down. And the reason for that is the liquid electrolyte in the battery becomes more viscous. So that's the issue. In a lithium-ion battery, there is a volatile liquid electrolyte, and that also contributes to the fire and explosion. The battery life of a lithium battery is generally 8 to 10 years. And that's also because the lithium degrades every time you charge and discharge the battery, also relating to the liquid electrolyte in the battery. And then the final concerns are the critical metal concerns. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that the lithium price has risen 5-fold in the last 18 months. And this has put a lot of pressure on the price of lithium-ion batteries. I read a recent report, a lithium battery is rising about 15% because of some of these pressures. The next issue is cobalt supply. A lot of lithium batteries have cobalt, and 70% of cobalt comes from the DRC, or the Republic of Congo. And we know that there are ethical concerns around this supply because of child labor issues and general labor issues. So the industry is concerned about cobalt supply coming from the DRC. The other issue is also graphite. 90% of graphite comes from China. So you can imagine that 90% of your feedstock for all the lithium-ion batteries in the world comes from one single country. So there is a geopolitical risk that have been identified with graphite supply. Finally, copper. There's 2.5 times more copper in an electric vehicle compared to a conventional vehicle. And a recent report has demonstrated there's not enough copper mines being built or developed to even meet the EV projections going forward. So only the EV projector, we're not even talking about grid storage or renewable energy storage. And then the final one, manganese. Manganese is also a major component of the lithium-ion battery. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that the possibility is there's such a battery that is even possible where it's totally fireproof and explosion-proof, operates in a very large temperature range, and you have life greater than 15 years. More importantly, is there a battery that is actually lithium-free, cobalt-free, graphite-free, copper-free, and manganese-free? And ladies and gentlemen, we want to introduce you to the CERENERGY battery. Next slide, please. These batteries have been developed by the German Battery Institute for over 8 years, and spending 35 million euros. And these are what the batteries look like. They're cells, and they're made of salt and nickel metal powder. And they are assembled in a pack like this. This happens to be a 5 kilowatt pack. And the main ingredients is sodium chloride, common table salt. So next slide, please. So the batteries is also solid state technology. So what it means is that instead of that flammable liquid electrolyte, it's using ceramic solid state. And all lithium-ion batteries are trying to get to solid state to resolve the flammable part of that battery and also the life of the battery. So we don't have any flammable liquid electrolyte, which means it's totally fireproof. We can operate down to -40 degrees and up to 60 degrees. Why? It's because the inner temperature of the battery operates at 270 degrees. It's fully insulated, so you can touch the battery by your hand, but it generates its own heat and it removes the heat during the charge and discharge. So it is a regulation of heat. So the good analogy is that it's like a mammal. A mammal can operate down at minus 40 degrees as well as up to 60 degrees. So it's ideal for cold climates. Now, the cycle life of the battery, because we don't have a liquid electrolyte, it uses sodium ions. It doesn't degrade during the charge and discharge process. And so the life of the battery is beyond 15 years. And sodium ions is actually as reactive as lithium ions. It's actually, if you look under the periodic table, it's just under lithium. And so we use sodium ions in the battery. It's totally cobalt free. And the best part of the battery is that there's no anodes. It's a self-forming anode. And that's because you don't have an anode, you don't have a graphite, you don't have copper, etc. So let's go to the next slide. So how does the battery work? Next slide. The battery is essentially a ceramic tube. And in the tube, there is a positive terminal, and we fill the ceramic tube with salt and nickel metal powder. That is the cathode part of the battery. The medium we use is sodium alumina chloride that fills it. And this ceramic tube then sits in a metal canister. And the metal canister is the negative part of the battery. Now, and this is what it looks like when you insert the ceramic into the battery. And that's a picture of the ceramic, the tube. Now, when you charge the battery, the sodium ions leave the chloride ions and it transfers through the ceramic part of the battery. That's the electrolyte. And it forms molten sodium on the other side of the battery. So the chloride is absorbed by the nickel to be nickel chloride. And you can see here how the molten sodium forms the inside of that. The beauty of this battery is the anode is self-forming. So when you charge the battery, it forms the anode. And when you discharge, it dissolves the anode. So that's why you don't actually need the graphite. Here's the graphic where all the sodium ions come back. When it's discharging, it grabs the chloride ions and becomes salt again. So that's a very unique part of the technology. But the best part is most people say, if you develop something in the lab, it is many years before you get into commercialization. The beauty of this technology, next slide, is the Fraunhofer Institute have developed this over 8 years, and we are basically commercializing it. If you look at the battery capacity, it's very similar to the lithium-ion battery, very compact. It's got lots of energy, and from a maintenance and safety point of view, it well outweighs the lithium-ion battery. Next slide. And this is a graph that shows you where the battery sits in grid storage. It's got a balance of power and energy. Next slide. So we believe the grid storage is the future. Ladies and gentlemen, people need to understand this is a new industry and it's growing at 28% year on year. And the simple analogy is that we have solar panels on our roofs. We sell that excess energy to the grid at 0 or 4 cents per kilowatt hour. We buy it back at more than 30 cents at night. So if we have cheap storage that we can store that energy, it shifts the energy from the daytime to the nighttime. And if you think about on a mass scale, how much solar electricity plants are being built, the demand for storage is outstanding. Next slide. So we're ready to commercialize. Next slide. Our project is in Saxony, Germany. This is some visuals of the pilot plant that was built by the Fraunhofer Institute. And in this pilot plant, some 25 million euros have been spent. They've made these batteries. They're undergoing tests. So they're well advanced. And what they were looking for is a partner that can commercialize the technology. The partner that had land in Germany, and we had that land. We have a background in batteries. We have the background in ceramics or alumina. And basically, we are the partner where we have 75% of the project. The Fraunhofer Institute has 25%. And you can see some visuals of the ceramic tube being made. They're now being sintered. And essentially, that's the solid state electrolyte. This is a 10 kilowatt battery, you can see. So these batteries are well in performance testing, and we're now moving to commercialization. Next slide. As I mentioned, 100 megawatt per annum plant in Saxony, Germany. We own 75. Fraunhofer owns 25. Next slide. We're in Saxony, Germany. As you can see, it's right on the border of Poland. A great area. There are a lot of electric vehicle plants being built around the place. Very exciting area to be. Next slide. So Fraunhofer estimate the cost of the battery to be 40% cheaper. Well, that makes sense. Salt is cheap. Nickel is the only costly ingredient in the battery. There's no lithium, there's no cobalt, there's no graphite, there's no copper, there's no manganese. So you can see that the potential to be cheaper is there. And finally, in the next slide, we recently launched a 60 kilowatt battery pack. So 240 of these cells sit in this pack, and essentially about 600 volts, 100 amps, and they will then go into the renewable energy sector. So if you pull these frames out, these battery cylinders sit in the battery like that. So next slide. I think we are just about. So our vision is to be in the renewable energy storage market. That's a very fast growing market. And I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Iggy. Lots of questions, as you would expect. Now there's been billions, if not trillions of dollars, both private money and government money, focusing on the EV battery with its components that you mentioned, lithium and nickel and graphite, etc. Why haven't we heard more about this sodium-based battery, and why isn't there more kind of money going towards it?
Yeah, good question. So we are not saying that the battery is going to replace the lithium-ion battery. The lithium-ion battery is a great battery, and this is essentially an alternative. When you don't need to have a weight and volume restrictions, and you need to have energy storage, then this is a great battery. So I think you're right. A lot of money is now being looked at alternative batteries, the redox flow, sodium sulfur batteries, sodium Albert type of batteries. So there is money now moving into these sectors.
And your focus is just on the grid battery or the grid storage, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We are just focused on grid storage. We don't want to get into the electric vehicle market. That's a very crowded market, and the margins are very tight there. This is a very fast-growing market, and a good example is the batteries that they put in Victoria, in South Australia, to prevent blackouts. Those batteries are making a stack of money from arbitrage, basically charging the batteries when the price of electricity is low, and then discharging to the grid when the price of electricity is very high. So arbitrage is the main economic model for these batteries.
And in September last year, you announced your JV with Fraunhofer. Now, Fraunhofer, do they own the battery technology? And then in that regard, you have a commercial agreement on a 75-25% split. Is that how it works?
No, we formed the joint venture where the IP is part of the joint venture company, and they own 25% of the joint venture, and we own 75%. So the company that operates this owns the technology. So it's not, the license has been transferred, not on a royalty basis.
Understood. And in terms of commercializing it, and you mentioned commercializing it a couple of times, what does that pathway look like?
Yeah, very exciting. We have a whole group of suppliers now working with us. Our lead engineering is a group called LEADAC. We're working very closely with Fraunhofer, and we've already started to lay out the plan for the 100 megawatt per annum plant. Lots of robotics. So as you can see, each cell produced roughly 1 a minute, Tim. So you can imagine the assembly of the cell, making the ceramic, filling it all up, welding it all up, putting into packs at 1 a minute. So lots of robotics and automation in the plant.
And LEADAC, I think you said that they're the engineering firm. Can you tell us how the DFS is progressing? You obviously need a DFS to progress. Can you give us some update on the next critical steps in that regard?
Yeah, DFS is progressing very well. Considering we only announced the deal in September, we are well down the track. We've laid out the plan. We hope to finish it sometime in the back end of this year. We're already talking to funding partners, so all the European banks we are in conversation with. We are also talking to potential off-takers, so big electricity suppliers who are moving into solar and wind. One particular company has something like 7 gigawatts of solar and wind electricity coming online, and they need battery storage for it. So we're looking to have an offtake with them for the DFS.
And it's a bit of a balancing act, even in the EV space. You need the offtake essentially before you get the funding. Is that how it works? Is there any government sort of funding for this part of the industry?
Yeah, that's why we are in the EU. The EU is a very strong focus on renewables, and we are in the process of looking at grants for this project as well.
Iggy, that's all we have time for. Fascinating story. Thank you for your time. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.